Всем привет, лужники.
Hi, Luzhniki. I always dreamed of saying that. I do not dance or sing. I do not play soccer. That's why today I'm here to talk to you about teaming infrastructure. And my talk is called Trust No One, Red Teaming Infrastructure on Steroids. A couple words about the content of this presentation. We'll talk about the concept of red teaming infrastructure. That's the infrastructure that assessments that's necessary for assessments. And we'll talk about security features of this infrastructure. We'll walk through the main OPSEC principles. We'll talk about key features of automation and deployment and administration, and the use of automation at all stages of testing. Now, who am I and why am I talking to you? My name is Vadim Shelest. I'm head of internal red team at Wildberries. This industry, I've been in this industry for many years. I talked at various conferences. I have my own chat on Telegram. I write about various aspects of information security, red teaming, purple teaming, pen testing. So you're welcome to join this channel, my channel. And oh, by the way, yes, if you are watching the broadcast online, then here is the QR code. You can scan it and send your questions to me as I talk. The QR code, well, probably you saw it anyway, and you scanned it. Let's start with the concept. As to red teaming infrastructure, we want our infrastructure to look like something on this picture. A castle, with all the ramparts and strongholds, really, with dikes, moats. But in fact, what it looks like in reality is it's an open house. Anyone's welcome. Over here you can see the interface that everyone knows. It's a search engine, and you can use these search requests to identify C2 servers as components of attacking infrastructure quite easily. Why is this important once again? C2 servers as main components for attacking infrastructure are basically software. Any software, as we know, contains errors, and C2 servers, be they commercial or open source, are no exception. Here you can see several headings from the articles: an RCE vulnerability in Cobalt Strike, etc., etc. These are just examples. Now, why is this important? I think this is clear. So what do we do about it? Probably for many of you present here, the threat model is a familiar notion. In our practice, we model the threats for the attacking infrastructure, among other things, as to the threats themselves. Then, for me, top one is access to the sensitive information of our customers, of our clients. If abusers gain access to this information, the consequences will be dire. Threat number two is access. Again, attackers hacked Cobalt Strike. They got access to the interface, beacons, implants, agents, all coming there from all the critical components of the infrastructure. And the attackers will then be able to use that, pentesters, red teamers, and then all the malicious agents also abusing these opportunities. And threat number two is OPSEC requirements. Do not confuse that with OPSEC. Operation security is other requirements to ensure, red teams actively communicate with SOCs. OPSEC allows us to stay below the defenders' radars for as long as possible. And then even if this is how you define your threats for our attacking infrastructure, sometimes it happens the way it's shown here on this picture is funny, but it's best to be prepared than, well, at least to some degree, than to ad-lib on spot. Red teaming infrastructure. A couple of years ago, I made a presentation on the same topic. And we discussed every component and what's it's responsible for and how to use it. The talk is available here at the link. And now I want to share with you the evolution of our infrastructure versus those times. Probably you're all familiar with zero trust concept. We'll discuss it a little bit. We'll talk about it with respect to attacking infrastructure. We'll talk about the automation approaches and also requirements of operation security. So let's switch to the design of the infrastructure itself. Here is the layout. This is our approach to design. I don't want to discuss the components. The components are shown in the earlier presentation, the links to which I gave you at the previous slide. To the left on the slide is the contour of our infrastructure. We control, this is on-prem infrastructure, we control all of it. Software, hardware, everything. So here, we've got components that are static and that ensure control of the project, that provide some back office functions, but basically they are static and they are within the within our perimeter, the on-prem. Another thing that's hosted on-prem is control servers. Usually we have long-haul and short-haul control channels. There are some servers that ensure active maintenance and operations, and there are servers that are responsible for short-haul, persistence, DNS, hidden channels. The implants are sent once a week. If there is no access or we lose access, we will be able to restore this access and continue our work. And another contour is public clouds. In the public clouds, we've got the components that provide us with an opportunity to meet the OPSEC requirements. There are various directories that are basically a proxy layer between the implants of the agents, of the beacons, whatever you call them, whatever you like, that are in the attacking infrastructure and the control servers in our on-prem contour. This is what allows us to stay below the radars of the SOC stuff throughout our project. Next, let's talk about ensuring security of attacking infrastructure. You all know about zero trust. The concept is all the hype, and probably there is not a person who would be in information security business who would not have heard about this concept. But there is another concept. It's called Beyond Corp, which is an imitation of the Google company. All the old guys here will remember in 2009, Google experienced the most large-scale and critical cyber attack. It was called Aurora. And since that time, people at Google started thinking that perhaps they needed their own zero trust implementation. And basically, we tend to believe that Beyond Corp is unachievable. There is no limit to perfection. But implementation of these requirements is available to large companies that have sufficient resources, but it also fits very well the requirement of the attacking infrastructure. So we bore that in mind. The idea is we've got three entities: the users, the devices, and access. And there are several stages to which this concept applies. We start with network access. On the slide you can see the Open VPN. Some may think that this is a solution for old guys, but in fact this is a solution that's tried and tested. We use it to access one of the contours. Open VPN allows us to set up MFA. Speaking about our layers of security, we use various scripts. Well, let's put it this way. Attackers gain access to Red Team operators' working station. Configs are available to them. They got the passwords from the keys, and they are trying to connect to the OpenVPN server to get access. But connection is disrupted. They don't understand what happened. And generally, it's something that can be achieved to test the MAC address or to test the UID of the user during the first connect of the client of OpenVPN. But if the attacker can't find this MAC address and match this information, this is quite an efficient solution that will complicate using this config. So this can be achieved with a classical OpenVPN and also OpenVPN Access Server. It also supports that. If you want something more modern, this is the tool we use in the second quarter. Nebula, it's an open source solution from Flag. This is a peer-to-peer layer 3 VPN. Its main difference from classical VPNs where traffic passes through one point, the VPN server concentrator. In a way, this one's peer-to-peer. P2P, it means there's WireGuard under the hood. Cryptography is fine. Hole punching, okay. And generally, this is a good workable solution. Over here, you can see the repository of this project on GitHub. Here's the link. We are moving on. Okay, done with access. Next to users and their privileges. Last year, at the conference of Positive Hack Days, my colleagues Anton and Pavel made an incredible presentation how we at Wildberries, we use Teleport as a PAM solution. So if you are interested, you can follow the link. The presentation is uploaded there, but at the time I wasn't working at Wildberries yet, but I was so inspired. These guys, I mean, Wildberries has such huge infrastructure and they still use open source solutions with some customization. But now I can see that, yeah, indeed, this is possible. We've got more than 30,000 servers behind the Teleport, and we decided to copy the same approach to attacking infrastructure. As to Teleport, I'll say just a couple of words. This is the interface. It's a solution that allows you to control access and roles of the users. There's a component called proxy. This is a component of Teleport through which users get access. There is auth. That's the component that controls the access. It issues short-lived certificates, and etcd is a database that controls the sessions. And the users using web interface. They use double factor. You can do a single sign-on. You can also create users manually if you don't have too many Red Team operators. You can add another factor. Authorization can be a software implementation based on TOTP, or like in our case at Wildberries, this is what we do. It's hardware keys. We use Kubernetes. It can be anything: web apps, servers, Kubernetes clusters, anything. The logic will be slightly different compared to web apps. When via proxy you get access, and the agents on the servers, if you want to get access to this resource where such reverse tunnels are built. Anyway, we control access of the users. Based on their roles, we can distribute privileges. If some of the Red Team operators, not all operators, require access to interfaces of control of some components, but we can distribute the accesses, the privileges quite granularly. And another advantage of Teleport is that all sessions are logged and recorded. And I think that everyone who is in offensive security and does red teaming and pentest testing, one day or another, you had cases when in a year's time, say, a customer would come back and say, what did you do on the 25th of May at 4 in the morning? Sometimes it's difficult to answer this question. If it's been more than, I don't know, 6 months, you have to get the logs and look through chats. Not always you will be able to still find the answer. But using teleport, this problem is solved. You can get the command logs with timestamps, so it's all quite convenient. And we are moving forward. Let's talk about operation security.
То есть суть этих мероприятий обеспечить
So the idea is to ensure some latent communication with our infrastructure, so that SOC analysts would take forever to investigate this intrusion. So phishing infrastructure, we use this tool, it's called Evil Goldfish.
социотехническими этапами тестирования проникновения.
If you ever had experience of pen testing, you must be familiar with EvilJink's utility and Goldfish 2 to control phishing mail. This tool is actually the child of love between these two utilities. Its main advantages are as follows. There is a common database. You don't need to write different hatches to marry the customers from both databases. The EvilJinks and Goldfish. Also, all of this comes out of the box. Besides, this tool has SMS phishing support. There are different SMS marketing services, but you can use the same interface to send phishing messages. This is quite relevant, and recently it's been showing incredible results. The same applies to QR codes. There is a special module that allows you to do all of this out of the Evil Goldfish interface. As to OPSEC requirements, here by default, this tool supports the integration with Cloudflare Turnstile service and an analog of capture by Google. If you're familiar with the service, then you will know how it looks like. We collected statistics. And in terms of user experience, statistics of using this Cloudflare solution is much higher, is much better. The results are much better. The idea is, if you use the capture to hide your phishing pages, you will bypass the attention of various automatic solutions for defense, like sandboxes, vendors, different solutions that scan internet non-stop looking for potential phishing sites. These crawlers traverse the internet all the time, but they can't overcome this solution. They can't look behind it, and your phishing pages live longer. There are live feeds for notification, also out of the box. All indicators of compromise are removed. The authors of original tools, being responsible authors of offensive utilities, they added them to their tools, but now they are removed. You can fix that also in the original tools, but now it's implemented out of the box. And the next layer of defense, it's the open source anti-bot solution from Fingerprint.js. It's a library, basically, that protects us from various automatic scanners. And here are the links to GitHub projects. OnSec guys have a wonderful blog. I highly recommend it. It's a guide to creating a phishing company or a campaign, from infrastructure to text scenarios, everything.
Грамотно написано, без лишней воды, поэтому очень рекомендую. А мы с вами едем далее и поговорим про редиректоры.
Now, let's talk about redirectors.
Мы в своей практике использовали, все.
In our practice, we used all types of reverse proxies, Apache, Traffic, ADI, NSA, Nginx. All of them are working solutions. It's just that you know how to cook them and configure them. We used them until a good friend of mine
Наверное, домовенок очень известная фигура в offensive community, в узких.
Probably you have heard the name Домовенок in the offensive community. It's a well-established name. Anyway, this guy,
По большому счету, это редиректор с функциональностью.
it's a redirector with a lot of functionality that filters traffic based on rules.
Bounce back.
And one of the advantages of bounce back
В самом инструменте встроен список
is that the tool itself has an inbuilt predefined rules to filter by IP addresses and subnets of various security solutions. All sandboxes, antivirus vendors, all the companies that collect information online looking for
чего-то напоминающего.
something that is something that looks like phishing or redirects. This is how this can Google, and for those of you who use Cobalt Strike in your practice or Bounce Back, has inside the redirector a mailable C2 linter that will allow you to filter traffic from implants on the redirector itself.
Поддерживает
It supports the functionality of domain fronting. Domain fronting is probably a technique that everyone knows. It's an old one. You can hide behind CDNs of major cloud providers. It was very popular at one point, and most large servers that provide CDN services banned to abuse the infrastructure this way. But it still works. It's just that you have to look for smaller services that close their eyes to this kind of use. And domain borrowing, I talked about it during my previous talk. And this method still works.
Соответственно говоря,
And it is still highly efficient. Bounce back supports HTTP, HTTPS, DNS, RTCP, UDP.
функциональность логирования.
There is functionality to log queries. And here's the link. It will take you to GitHub project. Домовенок doesn't have enough stars there, so please go ahead and like his project. Spoofing, port spoofing. This is a deception technique, and recently it was often used by companies that have advanced approaches to their security. We use port spoofing and this utility port spoof when, well, for instance, our director was hacked somehow. We get alerts, red elk. We see that the SOC analyst trying to interact with our infrastructure.
Каким-то образом разобраться, что
They're trying to find out
сервер
what the server was. We enable port spoof, and then the analyst starts scanning this particular server. And then
535
they get this information. These are the ports that are open, 1,600 whatever ports. The scans are taken, and then during the next iteration, various random services will be initiated on these ports. They will be taken from the fingerprints of IMAP library. So it's very difficult and painful to scan these things while they are wasting their time. We are distracting their resources. We are moving our attack onto a different redirect, and we keep attacking.
к автоматизации, ну и вообще
Let's turn to automation as the cornerstone of the DevOps and SecOps.
герой когда-то сказал, никогда не посылай
Never send a human to do a machine's job, as this popular character in the movie said. Once, I fully agree, because human resources can be used for more creative technical tasks, but all this routine should become a burden for the soulless machines. As to DevOps,
три стула, да?
there are three main chairs or three main approaches.
Подход с Terraform и Ansible всем знаком.
Terraform and Ansible, everyone knows about them. These tools are go-to utilities to administer the infrastructure, and Python there is
Подвязки в wrapper, чтобы
as a wrapper that marries these components. The next approach is to use Docker Swarm as a forefather
инструментов оркестрации
for the era of orchestration tools. Yes, probably It's not
глубоко позволяет нам
a very profound tool. It doesn't allow us to do certain things in the infrastructure, but for red teams, usually Docker Swarm suffices. And the third approach is Kubernetes that everybody adores.
настройки, но
It enables fine-tuning, but if your professional activity is not within DevOps, working with Kubernetes, you will find a lot of treacherous waters, and you will have to spend time to understand how it all works. So in our practice, we use all of these three approaches. We sit on all these three chairs. We have decided which one's the best, the most comfortable. I'm going to tell you how we do that in a short while. As to deployment of our infrastructure,
инфраструктуре,
and this applies to infrastructure
то есть
of public clouds with redirectors. They are virtual machines that we initiate, that we install using this wonderful tool. Workhorse
представляет собой
is
Ansible Playbook
an Ansible playbook
и, соответственно говоря, позволяет
and Terraform playbook.
методологию
And it allows us, again, to implement infrastructure as a code, the methodology that all DevOps love. It's a framework that is easily customizable. You can add your own tools there using templates that the developers provided. You can add custom components and control deployment of infrastructure in the infrastructure using Terraform and Ansible.
есть еще подходы, связанные с
There are other approaches related to automation of some stages of red teaming assessment.
этапов. Это
One of these stages is to prepare malware, the actual malicious code that we use to gain initial access and move in the network.
И вот этот инструмент позволяет нам это
We like to automate the process too, and that's why we use this tool. It's called MES. As a service, it's infrastructure that's controlled by Docker Swarm. It's a cluster of Docker Swarm. It contains several containers, and GitLab runner that controls the pipelines of malware samples and their obfuscation and all other stages. Basically, it's also a framework that can be customized to your own tasks, basically by adding new tools to the pipeline that will be responsible for obfuscation, that will confuse the signature analysis, that will package everything into the correct format, and that ensure unification, because on every team you have different number of people, sometimes 3, sometimes 30, but basically you separate the roles. In the team, one person is responsible for infrastructure, the other is responsible for something else, and there isn't always a person who would be responsible for generating payloads that would bypass the defense solution. And unification allows us to automate the process. You create the pipeline once, you customize it, and after that you have your sample on GitLab, and you get out of the S3 bucket the memo, whatever you use. You will be able to collect a sample, ready-made, a payload that you will be able to use from now on. As to pipelines,
фреймворк, как я уже
generally it's a framework. You can customize it, like I said. You add your tools and different formats of packaging,
на базе этого
etc.
есть замечательный доклад автора.
This link will take you to a presentation on this topic, so I suggest you view it if you have questions.
Мы живем в эпоху
We live in the times of EDR, XDR, and other security solutions. The logic is very advanced.
сигнатурный анализ.
It went beyond regular signature analysis, but signatures are still with us, and even those wonderful solutions that have the behavioral analysis capabilities that use heuristics to build hypotheses to identify malware, still these solutions are based on signature analysis, one way or another. Besides, if you work with companies that implemented the BYOD concept, bring your own device, that is when people bring their own laptops from home, well, it would be great if these computers were equipped with an antivirus. So to bypass that, obfuscation is still with us, just like signatures are still with us, but to handle it manually is not always very convenient. In our practice, we use this tool. It's a utility. It's a tool. It's an open code one, AV Red. Architecture-wise, it has two components: a server, a scanner. It communicates with the VMs, with antiviral software, and the front end.
Вы получаете доступ к нему через веб-интерфейс.
You get access to it via web interface. Then the front end will follow REST API to those VMs, and then
все это дело с тем антивирус, который вас интересует. В целом все это
then all of this can be done by hand, but it's not very easy because you will have to have a zoo of VMs. You will have to carry everything from one location to another. It's just not very handy. Besides similar utilities, well, why do I like AV Red? Here on the screenshot, you will see the different colors, the color code. Basically, these are areas in the code to which antivirus responds. The antiviral logic is somewhat more complex. You find an area of code that shines red, that raises a red flag telling you it's malware. So, okay, you found it, you fixed it somehow. You obfuscated it, you changed the signature, whatever. But there are also indirect signs that the antivirus uses to suspect malware. They are gray areas. And if there are enough gray areas here, gray rectangles, the antivirus will decide that this is malware, most likely. I'm going to panic. It's best to panic than not to panic under those circumstances. This utility, knowing augmentation and enrichment and getting information about different samples or the parts of the code, that it knows which parts of the code must be obfuscated. And this thing also knows how to deal with native portable executable. .NET portable executable. It supports macros in doc files, Microsoft Word, PowerShell. What else? Well, because it knows how to determine the parts of the code, the regions of it. It's got some automation that allows you to get an obfuscated payload as an output that you can use. And yes, it doesn't work all the time. The logic is slightly more complex, but well, it's something to start with. The link here will take you to GitHub projects, and the last link on the slide will take you to a demo booth where you can play with this tool. Next, we are going to discuss big data intelligence. Nemesis, an excellent tool. Probably you immediately recall this wonderful video game, but actually this is a tool. I'll start at the beginning. I'll start even earlier than that. Red Team and Pentest, we get access to different data. We find all kinds of documents on shared drives. We try to parse wiki that companies used. We also have outputs of different tools that often they come in different formats, unstructured data. And I have always wanted to run some kind of big data intelligence on this unstructured data. We have Hive. Many of you know this tool for project management. We upload outputs from various offensive utilities into it, and we have a collaboration. But say on a shared disk you find a Word document. It contains an instruction and credentials for a service. Host name of this service does not respond. Maybe it's in a different segment. Maybe you don't have connectivity, or maybe this host has been disconnected for a long while. The credentials are no longer valid. So what we did before in the Hive, we create nodes and labeled it with a tag. This is something curious. And we would write our own, or every team mate would leave their notes attached to this object. And then a couple of weeks when you get new accesses, when you find yourself in a new segment, you go back to these nodes, you review them, and maybe you'll miss one of the vectors, right? So this kind of approach to intelligence and the use of this tool allows us to not to forget about these opportunities, not to miss them. As to architecture, on this schematic, you can see what Nemesis is. It's a connect for C2 frameworks. In those interfaces, they work with the data collected. All of this happens in a transparent fashion and automatically via an API of the tool itself. Besides, there is automated intelligence built in. There are several components there that create the magic.
Сейчас хотелось бы сказать о том, как все эти данные хранятся.
Where is this data stored? The data are indexed by Elasticsearch. At any point in time, we can do full text search or semantic search. Metadata is stored as structured data in PostgreSQL. And there are components responsible for monitoring and cluster control. Now, these are the functions of Nemesis. I think many of you know what I'm going to talk about next. You get access to a shared disk. It's a garbage bin, lots of different files, maybe something interesting there, and maybe they are Microsoft Office files.
Word, Excel,
PowerPoint, doesn't matter. How was the flow built with analytics? You took this file, you uploaded the VM on the Windows with Office. You would read all of these files. It's not very convenient. It's not very user-friendly. We would like to automate everything, wouldn't we? Besides, there are methodologies for deception, right? In the methodology, you read canary docs. People throw out, they spread randomly different files. They call them some like super secret or sensitive info that you would love to open. You get the VM with the word on. You forget to disable the internet connection. Then you open this file, and the people at the SOC get a signal. So Nemesis has a component that, in an automatic fashion, would convert everything into a PDF. A PDF is easy to work with. You can read the document in a browser. Besides, its content will be indexed and added to Elasticsearch, and you can do search, like I said. And another scenario. On the shared disks, doesn't matter where, the drives, maybe workstations, you find archives. Maybe they are encrypted archives that people exchanged. Usually the passwords to such archives are not that difficult to crack, but you should be able to brute force them. What you did in the past is you would take it and bring it to your farm. You copy it here, you run it there, hashtag this, hashtag that. Some would try to automate it on their own, the chat and the messenger. In Nemesis, this is already automated. When you list directories in the interface of your favorite C2 framework, this file will be automatically added to Nemesis. It will be added to the container. John the Whip is the default name, top 10,000 passwords. But you can change that easily, and you can also marry that with your farm via API with your favorite brute forcing. Slack is the default messenger, but you can also connect messages via Telegram. They will send you messages that archive is now indexed and it's an Elasticsearch. Go there and you review the findings. As to the search along these arrays of data using Ozipaka, it's a tool that we love. It finds tokens, keys, APIs, all the sensitive secrets behind passwords, hard-coded scripts are no longer necessary because Nemesis automated everything. Binaries. Some people love writing their own domestic hatches to customize something on .NET. You know what you do. You upload it to VM, you enable some spy solution. Here it's automated already. Using different components in an automatic mode, you'll be able to look for bugs related to deserialization that you'll be able to use to develop your attacks.
Ну, вот, то есть, здесь мне просто хотелось вдохновить вас на изучение.
Well, I wanted to inspire you to investigate this tool more. It's a framework. Its capabilities are broader than I had time to describe.
Ссылки есть доклад.
On this link, you will find a presentation from SpectreOps. Guys, they explain how to work with Nemesis and talk about many more features.
Выглядит его интерфейс, по большому счету.
This is the interface.
Веб-интерфейс. Они завезли.
It's quite a pleasant interface. They now offer the black theme. You can do search on all data that was indexed. On the screenshot, you can see how search by credentials work. And you can also see how work with different scripts is organized.
В эпоху
We live
нейросети потихоньку захватывают мир.
in the era of AI. Neural networks are conquering the world, LLM, and
С точки зрения offensive security.
its capabilities for offensive security purposes are
Новостей.
making the headlines. That's why guys from SpectreOps decided to stay in trend, and they now offer Ragnarok. It's a chatbot.
Рак.
It's based on RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation.
Метода в том, что
The idea of this method is the neural network takes as an input not only prompts of the user, but also it enriches, augments the prompt with data from third-party sources. In case of Nemesis, it goes to the index of Elasticsearch, the Elasticsearch index, and the data will be sent to input and the queries of the user, and the neural network as the output will give you an answer that would be relevant to the data that it was fed. Here you can see the specification. That's what under the hood. It looks like what I'm showing here on the screenshot. You put a question and then you get an answer based on the data that you fed to the framework. We tested it. It's fun.
игрушки,
It's a toy.
выделил, это оно классно позволяет формулировать.
It allows you to do an executive summary for the report. It's its biggest advantage from my perspective. You want to develop a report, draft a report, this thing is excellent to write reports. On the other hand, you've got access to the data itself via the Nemesis interface, so to use this funny toy is not necessarily. Besides, it's quite hungry. It consumes a lot of resources. If you can afford
С вашей брутфермы.
a video card from a brute farm, then that's all right. But otherwise, it's just entertainment, and I wanted to entertain you.
Ну и в целом на
And I guess I'll stop at this point. Thank you to the organizers of this incredible event, Positive Technologies, and all the guys and companies whose tools we use. Thank you for what you do. You deserve respect. You are cool. Keep the good job going. Keep keep up the good job. Thank you. Thank you very much for that talk. It was very interesting. Which tools do you use to find data in databases, to scan databases, to find something in databases?
Ну, что касается соответственно говоря, потрошения баз.
As to databases, there is no automation for that yet.
Все упирается в то, какие данные мы ищем.
It depends on what kind of data we look for. If the secrets and creds, PDN. PDN is more complicated.
Конкретно готовые инструменты я вам рекомендую.
No, I wouldn't be able to recommend anything. Anything specific, no. Well, it's a pity. Hi, thank you for the talk. So you described how to make the infrastructure, how to deploy it, but in terms of best practices, where do you deploy it? Do you rent VPS? Is it on-prem? How do you do it? Everything that we have on-prem is our own deployment inside our own infrastructure in our private cloud. As to the component that's responsible for redirects, we use different public clouds.
Собственно говоря, это любые облака. Раньше мы использовали Amazon.
Any clouds. We used Amazon, DigitalOcean. Now it's mostly Yandex and similar solutions from domestic providers. Yandex, I mean, no one prevents you from using any vendor. The vendor should have API to communicate with Terraform. But would you consider them to be attackers? Do you protect yourselves from them during deploy? Yes. Well, that's the idea. As to Terraform, usually it will configure, the VMs will configure the network, then Ansible comes and brings all the software and the script is 200 strings long, I think. And all of this is done with Ansible. Thanks. Hello. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very educational to look at the other side. My name is Oleg Zhulin. I'm with FinTech IQ. My question is, you were saying that you prepare payloads, you have infrastructure where you do development, right? Do you use OPSEC paradigms? Which tools do you use? And when you develop malware, which of the principles of OPSEC do you employ? It would be very interesting to learn about that. It's an excellent question. Well, this is what we're working on right now. As to pipelines for all of this to work, we did everything already. We are set up, but to ensure the sec, that we can earn it. These methods we use them on our projects. We know how they work, like hard-coded credentials or credentials and history commits on GitLab or something. But at the moment, we are just thinking about how to ensure security from the point of view of pipelines. Hello, thank you. It was very interesting. A question is on AV Red utility. I got very excited about it, but I couldn't get it from your presentation. AV Red analyzes antiviruses and obfuscates the payload. Is that what it does? Well, you upload malware into its interface, then it uses REST IP to reach the VM where the antivirus is running, and as an output, what's returned to you is, yes, it's identified by antivirus as a malware, and this parts or bits of code. These are the recommendations that you need to follow in order to confuse the signature analysis. It has some automation, but to tell you the truth, it only works in 10% of cases because you can't automate some approaches, some things. Then you take, or you rather decompile it, you change the code, right? Or you use other methods to obfuscate, or it's up to the red team operator. You encrypt it, whatever. It's a tool, it's a helper. Really, it's an additional tool that will show you what needs obfuscating.
Здравствуйте, спасибо.
Hi, yeah, it was quite interesting. You said Jinx.
Когда-нибудь с такими сайтами, на которых стоит
Have you ever come across websites with defenses
помогает обойти ее?
that can't be bypassed? Well, I wrote about this in my chat in terms of defensive and how to work with these things. Like Gmail recently implemented
Там целый
defense against LJinx. It's a whole set of techniques that counter the LJinx, because LJinx is not the only product. There is Murena, there is other stuff.
интересно, приходите в чатик.
So please come to the chat, subscribe to the chat. 5 posts back is where we had a detailed discussion of that. When we get projects with bypass MFA, often we need recommendations, and as recommendation, these solutions that we learned from Gmail or Google, they work very well. You write about this in your channel on Telegram. Oh, right, okay.
Спасибо за доклад.
Thank you for the talk.
Ну, с таким еще не сталкивался, и в первый раз вижу. Ну,
It's the first time that I see a case of such serious presentation of this kind of infrastructure. Well, anyway,
ее тоже защищать.
you know that it must be protected as well, and you dedicate some time to break into your own infrastructure to test it. So you must have a blue team inside your red team that would be responsible for the security of your team and the other red team, the rather blue team. Do they know that you have that? Well, as attackers, we never have enough competencies relative to defense practices.
Но мы
DevSecOps, for instance, but we know how to break it. We do not always know how to build it correctly. So in a perfect world, it would be great if on the attacker side, you would also have someone capable of administering, knowing current trends. But we do not live in a perfect world. We do not have such a person. We do everything ourselves. But we have SOC, an in-house SOC.
соответственно говоря, мы можем обратиться и
And we can ask for their advice. Besides, we've got people doing DevSecOps for the whole company. We can ask them for advice. But we have not had any case that would be, on a turnkey basis, something like that. But after this presentation, even if they didn't know that we had a blue team or a red team, now they will know.
Спасибо за доклад. Хотел
Thank you. A point of clarification. Excellent infrastructure, brilliantly set up. That's red team. What about cyber drills when you need to exchange data with blue team, with team you are testing? If it's a drill, are there any mechanisms in your infrastructure that allow you to exchange data safely, sharing reports or something? Yes, that's why we have Purple Team.
активного
This is active communication rather than countering the SOC team. I also did a presentation on that. I discussed the tools that provide for collaboration. There are two main approaches. Put everyone in the same meeting room, and there is a chance that by the end of the day there will be a fight, and it doesn't work every time. That's why we use the instrumentalized approach. There are open source frameworks. In our case, that requires some customization, but now a company, there is no problem with finding resources to customize something, and you must have understood that already when I talked about how we customize teleport. But you can find my presentation about that as well in the Telegram channel.
Привет, спасибо за доклад.
Hi, and thanks for your talk. I've got 4 questions. I'll run through them. Question 1. You said,
К примеру, Drexel или I2P.
how about overlay networks? Oh, okay. No, not really.
В процессе думали об этом, но
We thought about it. No, we didn't use them. Okay. Next.
Рассматривали использование связки Terraform и NixOS.
Terraform and NixOS. Ever considered?
нет. Что касается
No. As to NixOS, I have very limited expertise in this product.
разбирались, ну,
So we need people who would know more than red team operators know in those practices. No.
Понятно. И последний третий вопрос.
Okay, last question. Infrastructure.
Вы проводите внутренние CTF по взлому важных
Internal CTFs to hack into your red team infrastructure. This is an excellent question. This is an advice. I'll take this question as a bit of advice. We try to hack ourselves, but you ask people from SOC to do it because we do have this practice, in fact. I mean, we are all security people, and
свой путь.
it's just we all decided we'll act on the offensive or the defensive side. But I will take your question as a bit of advice, and probably we'll start doing something like that. It should be fun. Thank you.
Спасибо за доклад. Такой вопрос.
Thank you for the presentation. Question. How many system resources are required to deploy this infrastructure? When you say system resources, you mean,
Системные требования для
well, system requirements, servers and stuff.
На самом деле я бы обманул, если бы сказал, что мы
Well, I would tell a lie if I said few resources. Ragnarok, for instance, it's up an enormous amount of resources, video, memory, 14090. I didn't want to give it to Ragnarok. Well, it's too thirsty. But at Wildberries, we have a private cloud. Everything else more or less fits the budget. We've got our spaces, our tenants in the private cloud where our resources are, well, we have the resources.
дело сложить.
If you put everything together, this is interesting statistics. I'm going to do the measurement sometime soon. I'm definitely going to do the count.
Так, ну если вопрос
Very well. If we run out of questions, then I enjoyed very much your question.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you.